Okay. Welcome, everyone. We are here today at the campus of Bethune-Cookman University, and I am here with a Bethune-Cookman University alumni and master's graduate, Mr. Gerald Simmons, and I'll let him explain basically his experience here at Bethune-Cookman in the
in front of the Humanities Building, which was erected in 1990. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the introduction. I'm here with Eric Hodges, founder of the R.O.S E Project, which he spoke to me about some years ago, which was an initiative of his to make the world a better place. And so far, he's doing that piece by piece, bit by bit, with others engaged from around the world. Once again, like I said, my name is Gerald Simmons. I am a graduate of Bethune-Cookman College first, and also a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University second. And the reason why I say that is because Bethune-Cookman College was actually a college, and then in 2007 gained the accreditation to become a university. And with that, you have different steps you take to use. But right now, I'm actually with Mr. Hodges in front of the Humanities Building, which you can see behind me, which is one of the buildings erected in 1990. Um, at that time, it was Bethune-Cookman College. That was a year before I actually graduated. It is a beautiful infrastructure that sits actually on it would be to my south side of the campus of Bethune-Cookman University. This school has a unique, rich heritage, and anyone who has knowledge about Dr. Mary Cloud Bethune knows that she was a trailblazer and one of the founding women to pave the way for African Americans to have access to education and to a better life. Um, with that being said, there are a lot of things that I can attribute to having a wonderful education or matriculation while at Bethune-Cookman. My first degree, which was a bachelor in accounting, in
black man
1992.
with accounting degree.
Yes, and with that degree, like I said, I'm not an accountant because during that time, one thing about being getting a degree in accounting, you cannot fall behind. And at that point in time, there was a death in my family, which set me behind. But I had a great professor, and I loved his name was Dr. Abbott, and he stepped in, and he actually told me that he would help me to continue with my degree, despite all of the things that we're going through. And he had his own life, he had other students, but he purposely took me under his wings, and he helped me to finish. And he told me, I'm going to help you to finish because you need to get out and make money and live and be productive, and that's what I did. Later on, I actually came back to Bethune-Cookman in 2015 to pursue my master's in transformative leadership. And with that degree teaches leaders how to be leaders. One thing about being a leadership is something that's innate. It's a trait that you're born. There's nothing that you sometimes you can just acquire overnight. You can, but it requires some nurturing. Similarly, like say, I have to pat Eric on the back because that's the leadership role that he's taken to step out on faith. And with Bethune-Cookman University, that's how we make it. Faith is the key. Even in life, faith is the key. If you don't have that, you cannot do too much without faith. You cannot. It's a belief. It's a strength. It is a perseverance. It's a movement. You have to have faith to do anything. And with that, I stepped out to be stronger in my community. Like right now, I'm an educator. I've been working in the capacity of kids and children and adults for over 25 years. So I'm a seasoned professional. I like what I do. I hope and pray that we're able to continue that with everything going on in the world today. But one thing about education, you never stop learning until you die. You sometimes have to learn how to walk all over again. We have to learn how to eat again. We have to learn how to do things again. We come out as a baby. We have to learn how to walk. We get to the point we're independent, and then we get older. Someone has to help us to regain all those skills all over again. So we have to have that in order to make it. I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of the R.O.S.E project. And at present, I reside in Orlando, Florida. And
he's a liaison
I'm a
in Orlando
for the
R.O.S.E
R.O.S E project, and I thank Eric for that. At Bethune-Cookman University, I'm also a part of the alumni chapter, which Eric is heavily indebted to, because even though he's not an alumni, he has been a stronghold in helping his brother to graduate from Bethune-Cookman. Now he has gone on to help other students to leave, come from the D.C. area, Maryland area, to actually continue the legacy of Bethune-Cookman. We are forever grateful for Eric for that. We cannot thank him enough, because education is the key. Every day we have to take a notion to assist someone into becoming better. Now, one thing about it, let's be clear. If you don't have a college degree, get something in some type of trade, or just be a productive citizen. Get out there and work and do something. Make a difference in the lives of others. It is not all about what you have obtained. It's not about your cars, your status. Put all of that to the side, because God has blessed you with that. Now it's time for you to go out and help someone else to find their goal and meet their dream. And I challenge everyone who's listening to this, what are you going to do to make a difference in someone else's life? Think about that and figure out how you're going to do it, because remember, everybody needs somebody. Okay? And if you can make a difference in one person's life, as the old fable goes, then your living is not in vain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So to hop back on what you said about, learning is a pretty much everyday technique that you need in order to be successful until the end of the road. Yeah. And learning how to walk all over again, stuff like that. And it's funny because I keep seeing 16s, and you and Benny graduated in 2016. Yeah. And that was a big transformation for me, not only with, him getting out of school, but me getting out of school, me also going to not a different career path, but a different job, doing something that I basically was trying to manifest for a long time. And actually today, July 16th, I didn't even think about it, is the anniversary from when I had my slip and fall and had my amputation. So speaking of walking all over again, it's basically like a baby. I've been trying to build this project all on my own. So this is my baby. I never want a kid to have to experience what I had to go through, the heartbreak that you get from being a financial aid office, just not having a safety net. Mm-hmm. I've never had a safety net to the point where I knew I could go back somewhere. Even though I knew I could possibly get it, that possibly was not as strong. Just like a possible in the hand of spades. It was not that strong. So I had to struggle and do what I had to do to push forward and to make a way. And sometimes I had to go without. Sometimes I had, just enough. For me, sadly, it was, being, released from Delaware State University, which was my first HBCU that I attended in Dover, Delaware, which I love. I was freshman class president in 2005. It was around the time that Hurricane Katrina happened, so, we had debates and stuff like that, and there was different things I had to learn, just by being around other cultures, being around other people, and actually understanding what, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Not figure out who people are, but, you have people coming from different communities, different states, you have different dialects, then you start having different groups. And all these different individuals, they click together because they know the same lingo. And it's not like I didn't do it, but that's your comfort zone. And you have to step outside your comfort zone. But if you don't know how to do it, or you're not pushed to do it, or no one shows you how to do it, then you're just going to be lost. You're going to be, stuck to yourself. So what did I write in my note? Oh, so basically, that situation changed my entire life. Uh, at first, I thought it was for the worst because I didn't know if I would ever be able to attend school again.
Yeah.
So it was a transition that, God was showing me by I don't need to stay home. I need to go away. That's when I went to school in Arizona. I had good experiences. I had bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I accepted that responsibility because guess what? I chose to leave.
Yes.
And go away from home where I could have stayed and had help. But sometimes your parents can be a crutch. Your family can be a crutch. Somebody, you're involved with could be a crutch. It just depends on what you want to do. I've never had a situation where I would try to hold anybody back from doing what they want to do. If that's what you want to do, go do it. Yeah. Because you don't know what stepping stones is for that person, for you, or somebody else. So I feel like my transition from being kicked out of school, learning different resources, figuring out how to do X, Y, and Z was ultimately for me to help my brother and to figure out how to talk to people, figure out how to network. Not be afraid to speak out in public, not be afraid to meet new people, new groups, or whatever. And it's not easy. I've never had an issue with, talking to people, but it's how you talk to people. But when I talk to people, just like when I met you, I already knew that it was going to be a lifelong situation. I didn't want something that was temporary, or I don't want to build relationships with people that's temporary that want to not only, enter my life or help the project or help another kid, because you don't know who you'll be able to help down the line.
True.
Everybody went to school all across the globe. So just imagine how many people they know from who they went to school with, what job they work at, what high school they went to, what city or state they from. They know a lot of people.
True.
So we know more in our community, but we lack less resources.
Well, I think the one thing too, Eric, you mentioned, and I want this to make, for the record, when you fall, you actually had a fall, but one thing you did, you fell looking up. It's the difference when you fall looking up versus looking down. I talk to a lot of young black men, and I speak to them, and I say to them, why is it that when someone is talking to you, your head is down, or you're looking to the side, or why you're so angry? Most of the time, their anger is from within. Because one thing about it, when time passes you by, and I say this to be honest, and I want to just put this on the record for truth. It's just like a basketball team that was 21 and 60 the first year. And next year you're 60 and 21 the next year, and then you win the championship. That year that they were down, when you're down, it's hard to come. It takes a lot of energy to win, but it doesn't take much energy to lose.
Right.
You can walk out on the court and lose. You can just sit out on the bench and just
sit in the middle of the court
and just lose. But when it comes down to winning, you have to pull out all your stops. You have to put out all your strength. And I think that's what happens in life. A lot of people give up. They don't want to put one step forward. They don't want to. They don't want to. As they say on Hidden Figures, they don't want to see beyond the numbers.
Right.
And I tell people, don't just see the trees, see the forest. When you walk into a park, the first thing you see are trees. Don't just look at the trees, see beyond the trees. You got to see your vision. And it's not all about how much money you make, the status. It's what you do, what you have, and how you can help your fellow man. And that's a lot of the issue. We get so caught up on what type of degrees, what type of school.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I'm happy with my one little bedroom apartment. It's for me. I'm satisfied with it. But at the end of the day, I look at my contribution to life. What have I done to help somebody?
Right.
I had a neighbor today call me and say, hey, I got a box of food for you. Somebody's giving to me, because one thing about it, a giver will never go without. If you sow a seed, that tree is going to grow.
Right.
But you got to first trust and believe that whatever you give, it's going to come back. He'll bring it back to you. But the first thing you got to have is faith. If you don't have it, it's not going to. And I'm talking about, You can have the, I know they say a mustard seed, but I go further than that. I go down to an amoeba. I go down to something smaller than that. You just have to have just enough faith so he can work with you because he's waiting on you to get it started. He'll finish it. And that's where we are, and that's why the steps of this school that we're sitting on, even though they're going through something with accreditations and so forth, they're going to come out. They're going to come out with a clean slate because of the faith, and because what she embedded and what she did early in 1904 is good. And what you're doing now, Mr. Hodges, you took things in your life as platforms and you build upon it. You know, you didn't look at, oh, my mother this, my dad. Hey, you took it, you ran with it, and now it's gone. And I tell people a lot of times, I use this as an analogy. When you go to a restaurant, the first thing you do is you look at the entree, and then you order your side dishes. People, stick to your main dish. Stick to the entree and leave them side dishes alone.
And it's funny you say that because I say that all the time.
Leave those side dishes alone. If a person does not have nothing to bring to the table, if every time you got something to criticize, just slowly, just emancipate yourself from that negativity. You don't need it. Even in a relationship, you can be in a relationship and still not be in a relationship. Just don't even listen to that foolishness. Follow you, do you? You got to do you, because if not, time is moving. You know, so that's something we have to think about when we're setting our goals and dreams. Stop living up on everybody else's dream. Stop looking at what type of car, what type of house. That's what they've obtained. What are you going to do? Are you going to sink or swim?
Right.
You know. So those are valid points to think
about. And those
about.
were the lessons that I got. You know, either sink or swim, or sit on the pot, get off the pot. But the one thing that really pushed me is when I left Delaware State University, I went to go live with my aunt and uncle. And I was working at an auto body shop and didn't really like my job. I knew I wanted to go back to school, but didn't have the money, didn't know how, didn't have help, couldn't get no loans, no FAFSA, had no credit. And that's the big thing, credit. Like, if you don't have credit, you don't have jack, because they're not going to give you nothing. You have nothing to, even make them look at. But when you're an 18-year-old kid, what do you know about, well, I'll pull back from that. Back then, when you was an 18-year-old kid, what did you know about credit? I didn't even hear about credit.
Well, good thing about it is I had a mother. I was raised by a single mother, and I must give her credit. She died in 1990, and I don't like to sit up and, people always say, "Oh, I went through that." I had a good childhood growing up. My mother raised 4 kids in a project, and I want to say she did a damn good job of raising 4 kids in a project. I can never remember our phone being off. I can remember not being without a car. I never saw an eviction notice. She did what a mother had to do to take care of her children. I think that's where a lot of the shortcomings. We spend a lot of time looking at the inabilities and the inefficiencies of children and adults instead of honing in what's good. If work is out there, young man, go get it. If your credit's not good, pay your bills. But you got to understand something. You got to start from somewhere. But you don't necessarily need no psychologist or psychiatrist to tell you what's wrong. Like Michael Jackson said, look at the man in the mirror. You can see what's going on in your own life if you look in the mirror.
That's my song. You better speak.
Because one thing about a mirror, it's reflective. Whatever you put in it, it's going to give you.
Oh, but you got to recognize who you're looking at, though.
Yeah, but you got to first see who's in the mirror.
There's some people who will say, it's not me, it's them.
Well, that's because because we're gonna go back to faith. They don't have faith.
Right.
Because even though I look at the mirror, hey, I know I might not look good as some of those movie stars, but I believe in who I am, and you got to believe who you are. And if you realize that Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, they took theirs. Rosa Parks sat on that bus. She didn't look back. If you look at the picture, she didn't look back. There were people behind her, but she's telling me, y'all right. I got to do what I got to do. And look at her history. Look at Miss Bethune. The Klan came to the school. She stood up. Look at Martin. He marched, went to jail. These are people that took theirs and didn't look back. Just like when God told Lot's wife, don't look back. She looked back and what happened? So you can't, and I ask my students these questions from a scientific standpoint. And I'm asking you the same thing, Mr. Hodges, to ask your students. If you are in a science class and you are asked this question, is it easier to move forward or to move backwards?
Move forward.
Well, keep it moving. Because in that car, that window's big in the front.
Right.
But when you got to go back, you got to turn around. You got all those obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And in life, Mr. Hodges, I say this, and I tell anybody this: people, don't get pissed off when obstacles come your way. You need those. You gotta have those. That's the only way that's gonna make you the person that you want to be.
They're not pretty.
They're not. No, it's not.
They hurt.
No, it's not. You're gonna take some hits.
Yeah.
You're gonna take some roadblocks and barriers. So what? You're gonna take internal and external. What you gonna do? You're either gonna sink or swim. So don't think everything is supposed to be beautiful coming your way. You're gonna have to fight.
Exactly.
And it ain't like Eric said, it's not gonna be hard. I mean, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be you're gonna have to put up some dukes sometime to get what you want. But you'll make it if you first of all, if you believe that most of all you gotta have faith.
Very true. I think my biggest thing is I don't like to face those obstacles, but when I was younger, I didn't believe that I would run into things like that. And knowing what I know now, and knowing the person that I was and the way I went about handling it then, it was, I won't say immature, because it's like when you don't know something, it's not your fault because you don't know. But at the same time, I would just say that at this point in life, I am highly grateful and thankful that they did happen, because guess what? They happened at a time where I needed it to happen.
Yes.
Like early. I'm talking about like 18, 19, 20, 21. Those were the 4 years before I did transitioned off to anything where I had, enough skills that I didn't have coming out of high school, where I had enough, sense to understand what street language was and when to use it and when not to use it. And not saying that I didn't know, but it was more of my language, and that's the way I spoke, and it crossed wires, because it's like you can't speak like this in the professional world, or you can't speak like this in the classroom with the professor.
That's true.
So it's either you accept the new life or you still want the old life. And that's what you ultimately have to decide. So, for it to happen to me in my earlier years, I'm grateful because I had a chance to learn, and I saw and I experienced what that felt like. But then, I'm a stubborn person, so I always know that when I'm told no, I try to turn my no around, turn it off.
That makes sense.
Because I got to figure a way around that, whether I'm going right or whether I'm going left. I have to figure a way, because there's no way that I'm going to just sit here. Because if I sit here, that prime example, if we both sit here and wait for somebody to rescue us,
No.
how long do you think it's going to take?
Well, that's just like the Titanic.
We'll sit here and rock.
They were waiting for something that wasn't coming. But I do know one thing, though. I watched the Josephine Baker story, and at the end, she said, I made good decisions and I made bad decisions. But most of all, I made decisions. See, that's the thing about it, and that's what people don't understand. That's what you're going to have to take the hits, the good or the bad. But most of all, it goes back to you got to have faith. Yeah. You got to have faith, and that's what we are, even in this pandemic. They want to send the kids back to school, and that's educated. Of course, that is a thing that's very touchy. It's a big area right now, and they got to think about this thing. They're going. The decision that's made, it can be a major impact on the world.
Right.
So we have to. One thing about it, a decision will be made.
There you go.
This decision will be made.
Man, you could decide anything. You could decide you want a better life. You could decide you want a better work-life balance. You could decide you want a better career, a better family, better job. It's you. And, I think the biggest thing with me was I got mad due to the situation that happened in 2016, where I had to slip and fall and had my amputation, where I went to social services and I couldn't get no help at all. It was like, oh, well, you don't have kids, so you can't be approved for X, Y, and Z, but we can get you food stamps. I'm like, I don't need that. I'm like, what I need is help with my rent. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna tell me as a working citizen paying person that since I don't have another being on earth that I can't get help?
True. But now let me ask you a question. And I like the way you said that. You just said that that was one of your tests. That was one of your tests.
Right.
They denied you. But your faith told you, that's not the end of this. And look where you are now, right, in a position where you're traveling. Right. You're touching lives. So you needed that. It made you bitter.
No, it didn't make me bitter. I
just a little.
No, it made me angry.
Angry? Okay.
It made me angry.
Okay.
Like I've always had a burning desire or fire in my chest to keep pushing, but this, like, it just totally threw me off. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you what happened before. The lady had a piece of paper on the same side of the desk I was on. Mm-hmm. Some poem about if I was on the other side of the table, would I lie and X, Y, and Z. And I'm reading this thing, I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, this is ludicrous. Like, you're supposed to be coming to these people for help. This is your state building. And you've been paying taxes, you've been paying Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, you can't get nothing. All I asked for was 2 months of rent, and I couldn't get it. So I had to do what? I was still hopping on one leg. Okay. I had to figure out what I had to do for work. I was going back to catering. I couldn't do much. I was sitting there. Okay. But I had to do it because it wasn't just me that I was looking out for. So I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. And that goes back to the safety net. What do you do when you don't have one?
Well, and like I say, we don't know sometimes. I mean, take for instance, we're in 2020 and you have people out there who have exhausted all of their funds, paying their bills. Right. But it goes back to when all else fails, you got to have faith. We don't know sometimes where our blessings come from. It just happens. It's something that just happens. That's when your belief comes in. That's when your belief comes in. We get upset about it. We pout about it. We don't know where to turn. Many times we don't want our family to know. This pride thing comes in. We get an arrogance. We get mad because we want everybody to think that I'm living like a king. I'm living like a queen. But in actuality, there are issues going on. So you just have to wait. You have to wait. You have to wait on him. You have to be patient. I'm like I said, right now we don't know whether or not the teachers are going to go back. Then that delays us getting paid. How do we balance? What do you do? We have nothing else to follow. You know, that's when we get on our knees and we pray, and that's what he wants us to do. And at this point in time, it happened to you, but look at you now, right, because you waited. You persevered.
And that's the biggest thing. Yeah. Like, don't fall under the wing of somebody who wants to take something that you're trying to build and make it their own. That was my biggest issue. Yes. Like, every time I would try to collaborate with somebody, and they would say, oh, well, we should do it this way, and, you know, we should have this for security measures. And I'm like, we live in a metropolis. Like, why do we need certain resources that's wasting money to do something that they could get on the bus or the train and do for free?
True.
But it's a status thing to people. Yeah. And they want to show this. They want pictures. They want all this, you know, media stuff. That's not for me. Okay. I can't get into that because, first of all, that's gloating, and God don't like that. So it's like this whole thing about want to be seen. I don't care if nobody ever even seen my picture. So we are going to have those obstacles. Give us an obstacle that you had at Bethune-Cookman that you could help an incoming freshman or any level of student in undergrad.
Well, the one obstacle that I had at Cookman, I guess, in 1990, when unexpectedly, you know, the death of my mother, and I was a student, that was a major barrier for me because I, always had my mother there. I'm 19 years old, 20 years old, and now I got to face life on my own. My family was there, but our connection wasn't as strong. So what do? And I said, and like now, I guess the phrase is, "What would Jesus do?" But at that time, I guess it wasn't as prevalent of a phrase. But I know, like Nike say, I just did it. I didn't do it. I did it. I had the first time I had taken out student loans, but I had to survive.
Right.
And I had to survive, and I had to take care of myself. And I did a pretty good job. I got out, I worked, and I tell you, I had my moment where I lost the car. I got evicted a couple of times to find out. I said, you know what, you have a problem. It wasn't no drugs, it wasn't no alcohol. I just turned 50 years old. I never drank, I never smoked. But I realized that I had a problem. I wasn't managing money. I was just like a kid in a candy store. And I realized that my bills came first.
Right.
Because one thing about it, you always gonna have, you're gonna have bills and people with their hands out. So, and I realized the ones with the hands out are second, but my bills are first.
Right.
When I finally realized, it took a minute. Professor Hodges, to get this thing
not
together.
A professor.
Well, hey, I'm just claiming it, speaking it to existence. But it took a minute. It sometimes it takes. I guess Moses was out there in the wilderness for a minute, but sometimes it takes a minute for you. It's sometimes for you to get it together. It takes a minute.
Right.
Some people never get it together.
Right.
But you have to have a plan, and that plan has to have some progression.
Right.
You can't just sit on the stool all day long and wait on somebody to come by and give you something. You got to get, like James Brown said, you got to get up off of that thing. You got to do something, to make it back. And I guess that's where this all ties into faith, and faith. If you don't have that, Mr. Hodges, I'm sorry, you really can't do too much.
Right.
You really can't do too much because you gotta have something to fall back on. And I think there's a lot of people. They want to believe. They want to say, "Oh, I can do this," and they get to the door. You got to hold on to it, even when they push you, bump you, punch you. You got to just bounce back. You got to rise like air. You got to keep moving.
That is so true. That was the whole reason that I started this project, was because of obstacles. And it's funny because every time I meet with somebody, it's like it's either they give me an obstacle, or they say an obstacle that they went through, or they say the excuses that they made. That's in our name. Removing obstacles, strongholds, and excuses. So it's kind of funny how that play out, but it just goes to show you that if we had more resources, we wouldn't have these obstacles. In most cases, we're still going to have obstacles. Life is going to happen, ups and downs. That won't change. But to figure something out and to get it real quick because somebody else already been through it, that's if you're being receptive to receiving it. That you're going to take it and run with it and do the right thing.
Well, just to add to that, Mr. Hodges, a lot of times, and I think that's where sometimes my colleagues and I, we agree to disagree. I'm a firm believer that people pick and choose what they want to do in life.
No, that's true.
The resources are there. The resources are more receptive and expected now than before. We didn't have technology. And I know just throwing this out. I can remember my mom going out, had to apply for food stamps. She had to get up, get dressed, get everybody dressed, and go downtown and sit there for hours. Call a number, then she go to the bank, and they hit her with the whammy. Now you don't even have to get out of bed. To get all of these perks.
Apply online.
Yeah. Uber Eats and all that stuff. You don't have to do anything. Everything is just at your disposal. So, when things are easy, sometimes it makes you lazy.
That's right.
If you don't have to get out and go out, if that's just like the kids now want scholarships and so forth, they want you to put it on the table for them. There's no, let me go and check. And then back in the day when I was at Bethune-Cookman, we had to go to the wall. We had to wait on stuff to be posted. There was no technology or word of mouth. Now kids just sit on, they sit here and Fortnite all night long, texting all night long. So if they can do that, they can research on how to make their future better.
And I tell them that all the time. Basically, Google is like their second mother, because they can figure out how to pronounce a word, how to spell a word, and give you the pronunciation out loud. Everything. We only had a dictionary.
Yes.
And you had to sound it out.
That's it.
So it's totally different now. And they can research, different time periods for their projects, X, Y, Z. I had to go to the library
Yes,
and look for a book.
you did. Yes.
Ask the librarian, do they have this book or anything on this topic? Pull it off the shelf, sit down, read it, figure out what page is on,
Yes.
and just imagine some of them books was 300 something pages.
True.
And
Yes.
we looking at this book like, okay, wow. Now that was time consuming.
Yeah. Now books are almost obsolete.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So technology is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it is if I don't walk up to and hand it to you, just like say, sometimes you don't want to. If a person don't want to, if a person don't want to know anything, or don't want to know anything, you just put it in the book because a lot of times they don't read.
Oh yeah.
And that's sad to say. We don't want to open up the book. We need to open up the Bible.
It's sad to say. It's true. And I say the same thing. When we used to have novels in school and stuff like that, I would skim read.
Yes.
I'm not even gonna lie. I would skim read because I didn't want to read the whole thing. If I could figure out what's going on, I can make up the rest of the story.
True.
Everybody has done it. You can figure out the plot or where this is going. And by reading the back of the book, if it's giving you the end credit. So, I mean, turning a project from reading a novel, easy. But actually sitting down is where I want to get my mentees to, is to actually figure out what we're looking at. How am I retaining this information? What am I walking away with? What are the takeaways? What did you learn from this that you didn't know before? All of this, goes together. That's engagement. That's actually figuring out what you're looking at. You're retaining the information. And guess what? You can speak on this to somebody else and sound intelligent. Not just sound like you rambling about something. And I tell them all the time, don't say something that you don't know about. Like, if you don't have that much knowledge about it, or you heard it from somebody else, or just a general saying. Like, some people didn't know what vice versa meant.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, even as adults, some people didn't know what vice versa meant. And I'm just like, okay, that was the norm in my house because it was always something with my father, like, okay, it's either this or vice versa.
That's it.
But if you've never heard it before, you won't know.
That's true.
So, I'm just grateful that I was able to meet you in this lifetime and build a lifelong relationship, not only to benefit, a family member or a sibling of mine, but to also help other kids do the same thing. Because this generation is talented, but they have to recognize this technology that they're using and what's going to replace the jobs that's already out here now. And that's the next step. So that's a whole different conversation because technology is on the rise and you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's like you got to pick what you're going to school for and make it something that's going to be around technology or something that you have to be in place for that piece of technology to work. So like I said, it's a whole different scenario. Bethune-Cookman alumni chapter, all I have to say is phenomenal. I'm forever grateful for Cynthia, for you, all the other alumni who's helped. And I remember that time when I called you and Benny needed extra money, and you told me about a Wildcat grant. I'm like, what is that? So, and that was another thing. I had to pause myself because it's like you're telling me, but I'm questioning you. And then I'm giving the information to him, and then he's questioning me about what to do and where to go. I was like, okay, you got 2 seconds to figure this out because I got to work. And you need to find the Holmes building and do. I'll never forget that building because that's my right. That's my grandmother's last name and my mother. So it's like, okay, you need to find the Holmes building and figure out what you need to do. You on the business side, you got the grant. So that goes with knowing your people, networking, getting a blessing like that just off of a phone call because I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, like I say, once again, to add to that, as to summate it, a giver would never go without.
Right.
If you give, it's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people look for something in return. You just have to just wait on the blessing.
Mm.
Like I said, there's a lesson in the blessing. You got to wait for it. It's coming, but you got to be patient.
Right.
You got to have faith. You got to believe.
There you go.
That it will happen.
There you go. And we're going to end it there. once again, I'm forever grateful. I'm thinking about graduate school.
Right here, great dude. We're gonna make it happen. This is it. And
So let's say, enter to learn
and depart
to serve.
And even though, like I said, until that point, I just want to say, Mr. Hodges, the initiative that you actually instituted is powerful. Don't look back.
No, we never looking back.
That's all I gotta say. Don't look back. And I say this to everybody that's out there who's listening. Find your dream. Find your dream. Find out what it is that you want to do.
And take action.
And do you.
Don't just dream. Take action.
Do you.
Do it. Start it from anything. I don't care if it's on a piece of paper, whether you have a phone call with a friend, 2 people, whatever team you think you have, build it in your mind, and then the rest is history.
And if one person tells you no, you tell a person, I talk to you later, I got to go find me someone that's going to say yes.
Yeah.
So move out the way now. Just slide and say, I need you to move to the side while I move
I don't even say that, but I'm going to say that because that might make them feel guilty.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on, let me call them back.
Yeah. You say, look, I'm going to find somebody that says yes. You move out the way now.
Right.
I got to find somebody on my team. I want a good team of disciples. I want some people that's going to be on my team. I want a winning team.
That's right. Learn to serve. That's what we here for. Learn to serve. All right. So we're gonna go have lunch at where?
The Crab Stop.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, Auntie. I'm sorry. I wish I don't know if they could ship something.
We'll talk about it. We'll ask what they can do.
We'll ask when we go there.
They have some places you can freeze it and send it. I've had it done before.
Okay, well, I'll figure that out.
All
right. So we're ending it here. These are the same stairs that you and Benny. And ain't that funny too? How both of y'all graduated in the same semester because he wanted to be hard-headed. He was supposed to graduate in the spring, but you remember what happened.
That's okay. He got it.
But it was destined for him to go there.
He got that piece of paper.
Hey,
that's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm so proud of him. He's doing good too.
Okay.
He's doing very good. And we want to see more African American accountants and everything under the sun. So we're going to make it happen. So we're closing out. We're about to head to lunch. Once again, this is the R.O.S.E Project, and we stand for removing obstacles, strongholds, and excuses. I travel to other schools, meet with principals and counselors. I also mentor virtually. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I will be posting this to YouTube, Instagram, and any other platforms that we work with. Hope everyone have a great day. Holla.
And like Michael Jackson said, don't stop till you get enough. Ooh. Keep on. Don't stop. Keep on.
That's my joint too.
Yes, it is. Yes, don't stop.